Hello, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. I apologize that I have to do this via recording, but as you probably know, I'm home recovering from my third brain surgery. I'm coming up on my 6-year anniversary since diagnosis, but I figured there's no better place for me to start than at the beginning of this story. And along the way, I hope you may learn a few things from my unique patient experience that may help you help your own patients someday. So my story begins in early 2019. I was working insane hours, dealing with what I thought were stress headaches and an aching left eye that I was certain was due to allergies, and it was constantly watering like it is doing right now. Now, I see an allergist, and she determined likely I was allergic to my cat, and she suggested I get rid of it. Well, that wasn't going to happen, but she did give me some Patanol drops, and I went on my way. Well, as the days and weeks passed, my eye kept getting worse, and by early June, at another visit, I asked her if she had anything stronger than the Patanol. That's when she stopped and looked at me and said, "Wait, what? It's only one eye?" She told me that wasn't normal, and she sent me to an ocular plastic surgeon. I was rather excited about that because the first thing that went through my mind was that I was going to get an insurance-covered eye lift. I went to my appointment. The tech was doing some of the basic checks of my vision and checking out my eye, but unfortunately, she couldn't hide the concern on her face. Or rather, I've been doing this job long enough that I knew quickly something was very seriously wrong. She brought in her supervisor, who checked me over and then left with the very same look on her face. Now, when the doctor came in, he did some measurements. At this point, I realized the pain I was feeling was actually my eye protruding from my head. How I ignored it or didn't notice it is beyond me. I even had a couple of viewer emails telling me that they were worried about my eye, but I thought they were talking about my right eye, which tends to be lazy sometimes when I'm tired. I was a forceps baby, and that eye was damaged at birth. Now, the doctor put down his instruments, spun his chair around, and told me that he was 99.9% sure I had ocular Graves' disease, and likely it would make me blind. It was an incurable and untreatable thyroid condition, but he was going to send me to get a CT scan to make sure it wasn't something else. My world stopped. I asked if he meant a brain tumor, and he said yes. I was alone in that room, never could have imagined that something was even wrong, and now I was at this crossroads of a potential brain tumor or an incurable thyroid condition. Now, I covered stories of people who went through things like this. Never imagined it could be me. Now, I had to wait a week for the CT because of insurance, but I had a lot of soul searching to do in those days. 3 weeks before my father died, 16 years earlier, we discovered he had a brain tumor. I was pretty sure I knew what I was dealing with. And after the scan, I asked the tech if I could take a look at my own CT scan, and he refused. Well, that's never happened before. Usually no one has ever had a problem of me looking at my own mammograms, x-rays, or whatever. So that sort of sent a very blazing message to me. He also asked me, even if I looked at it, would I even know what I was looking at? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I would after I saw it. Now, the doctor was supposed to call 4 hours later with the results, but that call never came. My 2 bosses were aware I was waiting for news, and they kept checking in, but I had nothing to tell them, so I just went back to work. The next day was Tuesday, July 2nd. It was 4:30 in the afternoon, and I was getting a story ready for the 6 o'clock news. That's when my phone rang, and I knew it was the Cleveland Clinic. The doctor asked if I had time to talk, and I assured him, yeah, sure, I'm, on deadline, but I have time to talk. Well, that's when I started walking around the newsroom, which for me isn't unusual. I think better on my feet. Well, that's when he told me I had a large mass behind my left eye. They weren't sure what it was, but I would have to see a neurosurgeon, and his assistant would help me set up an appointment. I said thanks, but I'd handle that myself. I hung up the phone and took my bosses into the green room, and I told them the news that their health reporter has a brain tumor, and I wasn't going to make the 6 o'clock news that night because I had to go find a brain surgeon. Believe me when I tell you, I was laughing and crying at the same time, and I made it clear to them that humor was how I was going to survive this. My humor is a little twisted, so the first thing I said to them was that, you know, we had just changed to the new 3 on the logo for Channel 3, and I thought, well, if I need an eye patch, we could put the new logo on my eye patch. Or I said, you know, hey, we could have a station contest to name Monica's tumor. They were horrified. I watched the blood drain from their faces, but I told them I needed humor to survive this, and I would find the funny in everything. I left work, made a few calls to contacts at our hospitals, and then went home to tell my husband the news. Now, even though I sort of expected the news, there's this hollow void of feeling when you actually hear those words. I've had so many patients tell me about the shock they feel. I clearly understood that, but it's so much more than that. In that moment, you learn that you have a dire diagnosis, and yet you still don't have all the details. You can't help but let your mind go down a million different avenues. Of course, when you hear the words brain tumor, you automatically think the worst possible outcome. And I'm grateful I have the ability to compartmentalize, and my pragmatic self took over. But I truly wish when it's time to break the news and you're at the very beginning with a slew of test results left to find, that patients could talk to an advocate or counselor or some type of expert before they leave the appointment who can help them organize their thoughts, create a plan, and begin to prepare them for what may lie ahead. Now, I'm not sure how I wished I'd been given the news, and perhaps I'm a different type of patient, but I'm not sure telling me over the phone I had a brain tumor was the best way of dropping that bomb. It probably would have been wiser to tell me I had to come in to go over my results. That said, considering my chart drops bombs on patients ahead of doctors all the time, my results never showed up until after I was told. And believe me, I was pretty much checking every 15 minutes for a day and a half. Now, fast forward to the next day. I'm out walking my dog and my phone rings. And I connected with perhaps one of the most vital people on my care team aside from my surgeon. Suha is Dr. Pablo Racino's nurse practitioner and is pretty much his right arm for everything regarding his patients. She literally became my life support system, and I'm not the only patient who will tell you this. So once she set up the appointment in an incredibly delicate manner, she asked me if I had my affairs in order. Oh my goodness, before I had the chance to panic, she said, whoa, Monica, you're 52. Why don't you have your affairs in order? She was absolutely right. Then she went on to explain that she was giving me something I would have control over because there were going to be so many other things in the coming weeks out of my control. It was the greatest advice I received in the very beginning and probably taught me one of the most important lessons that helped me survive the chaos. There are things in life you can control and things you can't. You need to figure out what's yours and let God and the universe handle the rest. I was diagnosed 4th of July week, so my appointment was scheduled for Friday, July 5th, to meet with Dr. Racino's. I went through the holiday parties in a fog. Since I had a couple of days before my appointment, I did what every good patient does. I Googled. Fortunately for me, I know what to Google. But for those who don't, the internet is a terrifying place with too much inaccurate and frankly dangerous information. Now, I am one of those patients who wants as much information as she can get. I believe knowledge is power, and that gift of compartmentalizing helped me learn about my condition as if I was working on a news story. Not every patient is like me regarding information, but pretty much every patient Googles or looks for support groups on social media. That's another very dangerous place. I found a few of those groups, and they left me more frightened and depressed and confused than I already was. And since we already know patients are going to do this, it would be helpful to have that advocate or resource available when needed. My chart is a great place to set this up, in my opinion. Just allowing a patient to send a message with their questions in the middle of the night is a game changer. Having an advocate be able to reach back with, "I'm working on finding you some answers," is just a simple relief. I know this is done to some extent, but we really don't have a designated, specialized team in patient experience, especially for critical diagnoses. A friend of mine had orthopedic surgery at a hospital in New York, and he was assigned someone right away who basically held his hand through everything he didn't understand. I know it's being done, but I think it really needs to be done better for patients who are essentially frozen in fear with something that is utterly overwhelming. When I finally met with Dr. Racinos, I walked in with a slew of potential definitive diagnoses I might be dealing with because I essentially read the Neuro Atlas relating to my condition in 2 days. I also did my homework on him, where he did his fellowship, and I set up my second opinion at that other hospital down the street, where I also knew brain surgeons. I was all business. I wanted as much information as I could get. I wanted the game plan. I wanted the risks and so forth. Now, my husband, he has never experienced any type of medical emergency or drama. He was a puddle of petrified goo, but blissfully unclear about the extent of what I was dealing with. And since it was a holiday week, his best friend was in town visiting. I brought him with us to that very first appointment. I gave him a job of taking notes, even though I recorded the entire appointment on my phone. But having him there brought Deke additional comfort. He would have someone else to talk to about this, who would at least have accurate information. It was probably one of the smartest things I could have done, albeit overwhelming for Rich, but hey, he would have been part of that need-to-know circle anyway. So speaking of that, I decided to keep that circle very, very small intentionally. Telling someone you have a brain tumor is a heavy weight to put on someone's shoulders. When people hear those words, they immediately think you're going to die. They get emotional, and you find yourself wasting your energy taking care of them instead of yourself. Now, I knew eventually I would have to go public with my story, but I continued to go to work all of July, August, and September as if nothing was wrong. For me, normalcy was critical. Everything was normal until it wasn't. And to get through it, I lived 5 minutes at a time, especially on those days when everything became so incredibly overwhelming. I quickly learned that worry was a wasted emotion. Suha taught me that. Worrying meant there was something that was not in my control. I had to let it go. I also didn't beat myself up for going down the rabbit hole occasionally and feeling sorry for myself. But that rabbit hole, it's dark and depressing, doesn't have good Wi-Fi and no sunshine, so I didn't stay there for too long. Now, personally, I found unplugging from everything, going for a walk in the woods, was the best way for me to reset my brain. And I'm not kidding when I say those walks may have saved my life. When it was time to let everyone know, we taped a couple of stories which ran the day before my surgery. Take a look.
Friday, 9:57 a.m.
This message confirms your appointment on Monday, July 15th at 4 p.m.
This summer, Monica's world turned upside down. For years, she'd been dealing with a nagging problem in her left eye. First, thought to be allergies, then possibly an autoimmune disorder. But an MRI revealed something far more serious, a tumor pressing against her eye and left hemisphere of her brain.
As that bone has thickened and the tumor has grown, it's started to slowly push your eye out.
This type of tumor is called a meningioma, and the encouraging news is most are benign. But the location of Monica's on top of her optic nerve and carotid artery makes removing it more complicated.
We have also some backup options if we needed it to treat any residual tumor that would be there. that's an area where we need to be careful with.
For a journalist who has built her career on advocating for others, urging all of us to make health a priority, Monica's now committed to practicing what she preaches.
If anything I want people to learn from is it's okay to put yourself first. We often forget to do that. But if you're the primary caregiver and, oh, gee, I'm the health reporter, I kind of take care of everybody in my head. If I don't take care of me, I can't take care of anybody. So you need to find that balance.
Meditation, regular exercise, and clean eating. All part of her plan to be strong, mentally and physically, going into surgery.
I have to be in the best place I can be because I want to be back. I want to be back in January. I want to be back ready to rock and roll. I want to be back ready to share the rest of the story with you guys.
And Monica joined us now. Wow, how you feeling, my friend?
Not sure how to explain.
Yeah.
It's kind of overwhelming.
We've all felt that way as we've been talking with you, over the past few weeks as you shared this with us. And there's just so many thoughts going into this, but you have a great treatment plan. Mm-hmm. You know what you're getting ready for. Yep. And you're going to be explaining it to our viewers as well. You want them to kind of be a part of all of this.
I do. This is one of those things where I feel that I'm the health reporter. So of course I'm going to do a story on my own brain tumor. And if my story can help one other person or perhaps be somebody else's survival guide, I mean, that's what I do for a living. So, unfortunately, I wish I wasn't the patient, but it is what it is. And, I'm going to approach this like I do everything else in life.
Yeah, you've told several of us in the newsroom over the past few months, and just seeing your spirit, seeing how strong you are here is encouraging to us and folks who are going to see your journey as well.
You never know how strong you are until you're faced with something like this. And, I have a lot of things left to do. So I'm telling myself I'm training for an MMA fight. I know it's going to kick my butt, but I'm going to do everything I can in my power because I want to be back. I want to be back at work. I'm not used to being told slow your roll. So
that's right.
So for me, this
isn't.
Yeah, this is going to be. It's forced me to have some very deep reflection. And the one thing I can tell you is I've been present. And that's a very, very good place to be, and something I'm going to try and keep after all of this is over.
Well, we love you,
so good.
Monica Robbins.
We
you
do.
guys too.
We love you, and if anybody can handle this, you are one of the strongest people we know, and we're just all here rooting for you.
Thank you.
Last night, we told you about our own Monica Robbins and her battle with a brain tumor. Tonight, as our senior health correspondent, Monica is back because she wants to explain to us exactly what type of tumor it is to raise awareness and to help us all better understand what you're facing, Monica.
Yeah, believe it or not, there are more than 130 different types of brain tumors. Here's what you need to know about mine.
I have what's known as a meningioma, and while it's referred to as a brain tumor, it's actually formed from the meninges, or the three thin layers of tissue covering my brain and spinal cord. Meningiomas are the most common of diagnosed brain tumors. I'm one of 32,000 people diagnosed with this type each year in the U.S. My type of tumor is more common in women and typically affects people over age 40. This is the same type of tumor that Maria Menounos, Kate Walsh, Sheryl Crow, Elizabeth Taylor, and Mary Tyler Moore had. 80% of meningiomas are non-cancerous or benign. That just means it won't spread to other parts of the body. But benign tumors can still be life-threatening, depending on where they're located in the brain. Meningiomas are usually slow-growing and symptoms develop gradually, and typically don't appear until the tumor is large enough to interfere with normal brain function. Symptoms can include headaches, memory loss, loss of smell, hearing loss, facial pain, vision problems, weakness in arms and legs, personality changes, and seizures.
Today we're going to review some of that.
While the type of tumor I have is common, the location is rare. My surgeon sees about 4 cases like mine each year. It's called a spheno-orbital meningioma. The sphenoid wing is the side of the skull. The tumor is located behind my left eye and is causing my eye to protrude and pushing my left hemisphere of my brain back. Unfortunately, my tumor is not easily removable. Parts of it are in my bone and on top of my optic nerve and carotid artery. My surgeon will take out as much as possible, but because of the risk of blindness or stroke, will leave the latter parts of the tumor behind. I'll have a titanium plate in my head, and once we figure out if my tumor is benign, aggressive, or cancerous, we'll make our next game plan, which could be watch and wait or radiation. These tumors have a high rate of recurrence, so this may likely be the first step of a long journey. But I have every intention of being a warrior every step of the way.
The causes of meningioma are not fully understood. Radiation exposure is one potential cause. Others could be hormones or genetic mutations. We don't know what caused mine for sure, but shortly before he died, my own father was diagnosed with a brain tumor. He had other health issues at the time, but this is certainly something I had to consider.
Absolutely. Monica, you know, as long as I've known you, you have said you have to speak up. If you notice something is wrong, something doesn't seem right, and that's what you did here.
That's exactly what I did. And I did have these symptoms for a couple of years beforehand, and my symptoms were simple. I thought it was allergies, but you have to be your own best health advocate because you are the only one who has control over your own health. Again, those stories aired the day before my surgery. I had no idea the impact they would have, and yes, I also had people angry with me for not telling them I had a brain tumor. I will never apologize for that. For the first time in my life, I had to take care of myself, and I had to travel this journey my own way and on my own terms. Patients should be educated on how they want to handle sharing the details, because while most people have the best intentions, sometimes they can just get in the way or make it about them. The best advice I was given by a cancer survivor, she told me when people reach out to you to help, if you know they're trustworthy and dependable, give them something to do. What many patients don't realize is how helpless everyone else feels. So doing something is better than doing nothing and just waiting around for updates. The other gem of advice that she gave me was letting me know that I don't have to thank each and every single person, because that can be simply overwhelming and exhausting. Those who reach out are usually those you've helped in the past, and it's a way for them to say thanks to you. That was a great reminder and one less chore off of my plate. Now, my first surgery happened in 2019, so some things I'm going to describe to you may have changed by now, but let me explain and then I'll get to the point. So, I woke up after a 9-hour surgery with severely impaired vision. I was essentially blind. My left eye was like looking through a broken mirror and a kaleidoscope. And while my brain was figuring out how to rewire itself to see, my good eye, the right one, would shade. It was like looking through a gauzy curtain. I could see light and shape, but that was about it. I wasn't aware that this side effect could happen, and it was incredibly frightening. Thankfully, I slept most of the time in the hospital. However, going over the pain management plan for aftercare would have been very beneficial. I would have liked to have known or been told that I would be receiving fentanyl. Fentanyl was painful when injected until it knocked me out. I didn't know I was going to get it, and frankly, I was incredibly concerned about personal family history. I've lost family members to heroin overdose. The thought never occurred to me to have this discussion with pain management beforehand, and the option was never offered. And I know it might have been an overreaction on my part, but I wish pain management aftercare was discussed before surgery. I will ask for it now, and I did in post after my second surgery. I told them, please, no fentanyl, and they didn't give it to me. Now, my craniotomy impacted the nerves in my face and the side of my head. So essentially, the nerves are still damaged in my face. And what also was impacted was my trigeminal nerve, which made it very difficult, if not impossible, for me to chew. Now, I knew this was a risk from an interview with NBC's Maria Menounos, who also had a craniotomy. She talked about how difficult it was for her to chew. So when they started bringing me food to eat, it was food I needed to chew. I never thought I'd actually beg for Jell-O, but I ended up living on frozen yogurt that my husband and friend would bring up from the cafeteria. It would be helpful to discuss this risk with patients, and perhaps, if it happens, make sure food service is aware that soft food is required. My froyo, not a great choice, considering I was also getting insulin shots due to the pain management drugs impacting my glucose levels. Something else I wasn't aware could happen and I wish was discussed with me. Now, let me be crystal clear when I tell you, the care I received at Cleveland Clinic was exceptional. The nurses were phenomenal, as were the STNAs. The doctors, yes, saved my life. It is not lost on me that my neuro team was incredible. But full disclosure, I was a bad patient. Between getting woken up for fentanyl or OxyContin doses and then woken up again for the insulin shots because of the pain meds, and me not being someone who can lay in bed for days, I wanted out of that hospital post-haste. Now, I convinced the nurses to cut my pain meds, and I managed to pass physical therapy. When the on-call doctor and his 2 fellows showed up in my room as I was preparing to leave, I gave them the litany of reasons, especially the fact that I asked for these issues to be put in my chart, but resolution never reached who should have been told. I escaped the hospital 3 days before I should have, and yes, it was the dumbest thing I ever could have done. Because by the time I got home, it only took a couple of hours before my head was screaming in pain and my husband had to get the doctor to write a prescription. And believe me when I tell you, thank goodness that nurse lived near us because he was able to meet with her and pick up that prescription so he didn't have to go all the way downtown. It was incredible. But yes, I'm telling you, I learned a valuable lesson. Follow doctor's orders, but I also learned about things I need to be prepared for, or at least discuss before surgery. Suha was absolutely brilliant in preparing me for the aftercare adventure at home. We had the house set up for the sitting showers, the appropriate shampoo I needed, and my meds were set out like a timed pharmacy next to the bed so my husband wouldn't lose track of what I had to be given next. I was thrilled that I didn't have to shave my head. They just cut a very thin line where they needed to, and they kept everything together with 51 staples I still have with me. So imagine my surprise when my hair started falling out 3 weeks later. I didn't know that head trauma and anesthesia could contribute to hair loss, known as telogen effluvium. The risk increases the longer you're under anesthesia, and I was under more than 9 hours. I ended up with a bald spot almost the size of my palm on the top of my head, and it couldn't be covered with hair extensions. I had this concern that I would be doing a live shot when I got back to work and the wind would blow my hair over and everybody would see this giant bald spot. So, best thing I decided to do was own it. But also let people know that there are options available. Take a look. Well, we all know chemotherapy can cause hair loss, but there are other conditions too. Thyroid disorders, alopecia, severe stress, and in my case, surgery. This is one part of my recovery from brain surgery that I haven't talked about yet, but now it's time to share this part of my story.
At first, when my surgeon sewed me up with 51 staples, I was shocked at how little they had to shave for brain surgery. My relief, though, was short-lived. Instead of growing back, hair fell out in this area, leaving this, a gaping bald spot. I managed to hide it, using the hair I still had and making my part a little further over. But to go back to work, I had to have a better plan in place. And still, in spite of my best efforts, Mother Nature would likely give up my secret. I thought hair and scalp specialist Jeffrey Paul may have an answer. I'd done stories before on his 3D hair pieces. Little did I know I'd come back to him for help.
Let's do a quick 5-step on this. We'll have both of them ready to go.
Paul is also familiar with creating what's known as hair prosthetics for medical hair loss, patients who lose patches and don't need an entire wig.
It's not even designed in a factory. It's designed in a laboratory for your need, and that's a prosthetic.
They color matched my hair, and the piece would be attached to my head for 21 days at a time.
Anytime that you're attaching hair to areas that are not any longer hair-bearing or partially bearing like yours, that's a prosthetic. It needs a breathable membrane, not just a hair piece. It needs something that allows adhesive to be adhered to it, and the kind of adhesive that is medically approved.
I can shower, swim, and treat it like my own. And what's more important, my own hair can still grow underneath.
What we've created is a lace liner so that the hairs have been hand-tied to that to give a very natural hairline.
Each visit, the piece is removed and cleaned. My scalp is cleaned and prepped too.
I feel like the Terminator again.
As my hair grows, the pieces are made smaller to cover less area.
There's more available in hair today than it's ever been. It's just getting the right one for you, and that's where the consultation becomes so important.
I started taking the supplement Viviscal and my hair started growing back, but not all the way. I found a Keratherapy product that literally I spray on my head and it hides the remaining bald spot with hair fiber thickeners. I shared this info with Suha so she could tell other patients just in case it happened to them. The universe, though, has a very twisted sense of humor. It took a couple of months for my vision to return to suitable levels, and I went back to work in mid-January of 2020. When I got back, I warned my bosses about this strange virus I was seeing reports about in China. 2 months later, I was sent home again for nearly 2 years to cover the biggest medical story of the century. Knowing I would be getting MRIs every 6 months to monitor the residual tumor, even though my MRIs kept coming back clear. Don't laugh. My dog Fergus, who's been with me since the very beginning, always checked my head. But in 2021, he simply wouldn't leave me alone. Anytime I sat down, he stuck his nose in my eye or on my head or on my forehead. That's when it hit me, something might be wrong. I started bugging Dr. Racino's for a CT scan, but since my MRIs were clean, they didn't think I needed it. And when you have a brain tumor like mine, you don't want to expose it to additional radiation because that is what kind of feeds it, ironically. But I fought for it. And finally, I just went to Suha, and she made it happen the next day. And guess what? Dr. Fergus was right.
In July of 2019, I was diagnosed with what's known as a sphenoid wing orbital meningioma. I know, it's a mouthful of a name. Meningiomas are the most common brain tumors. About 32,000 Americans are diagnosed each year. But depending where they're located, even benign tumors can be deadly. Mine is threatening my life and my vision. My surgeon performed what's known as a craniotomy and removed as much tumor as he could. A large portion was also in my skull, so a significant amount of bone had to be removed. 4 residual parts of the tumor had to be left behind because removing them could potentially kill me or make me blind. So I still have tumor on my carotid artery, optic nerve, the back of my left eye, and in my left eye socket. That's the problem tumor. It decided to spread into my cavernous sinus, likely through the bone. That area also contains my carotid artery and the nerves that control my eye movement. I thought I was going to have another craniotomy to remove it, but fortunately for me, I live in Northeast Ohio. Back in May, Cleveland Clinic began doing a new type of minimally invasive procedure for my type of tumor. It's called transorbital neuroendoscopic surgery, or the TONES procedure. The surgeon will access the tumor through my left eye by cutting along the crease in my eyelid. From there, they'll drill out the problem tumor and, if necessary, use bone and cartilage from my rib to rebuild parts of my skull. Surgery will happen in mid-December, and I'll need about 3 months to recover. A few weeks after surgery, they'll reassess the area and, if necessary, do additional surgery. The issue is we really don't know what we're dealing with until the surgeons get in and see what's happening. A few months after surgery, it's likely I may need radiation, but a lot will depend on what they find.
Trust your gut. Advocate for yourself. And yes, I listen to Dr. Fergus, and he still checks me daily. I also entered into any and all clinical research efforts that were presented my way. And that's how I learned I was a unicorn. Take a look.
So take me back to 13 months ago.
Oh man, 13 months ago, I underwent second brain surgery. The tumor that was in my eye socket had spread, heading toward my cavernous sinus. So surgeons went through my eyelid and they drilled a bunch of tumor out as much as they could, and basically bought me time. Recovery was a lot more difficult. I had more issues.
Yeah! That's good.
One of which is my balance. I didn't realize that this thing might have impacted that.
Nice and controlled.
I can tell you I had pretty good balance before I had brain surgery.
Hold it. Now bring it back. Slow, 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 slow. I see the frustration in not being able to do what she wants to do, what she used to be able to do. But she just keeps pushing through, you know? And it is harder for her. She makes everything look easy, but it's not. I think that would be like my main message is, yeah, she makes it look easy, but it's not.
So every 6 months I have my routine scans, and usually the results hit my chart before I get a chance to talk to my doctor. And I have never been more happy to see myself described as unremarkable. Unremarkable means nothing has happened. What they decided to do was start collecting tumors so they could make a database. There's only 4 people on the planet with my particular genetic mutation, and I'm the only one in the United States. I knew that that database wasn't really going to help me, but it may help somebody down the road 10, 15 years from now.
Governor Monica Robbins, WKYC.
There's always going to be before the brain tumor and after the brain tumor. And my normal is just, it's new and it's different. The best possible news right now is I'm just living my life. And I don't have to worry about anything until that scan in April. Right now, I'm just gonna keep pushing myself and challenging myself and acting like I don't have a brain tumor, even though I know I do.
I know I'm not the only one with my genetic mutation. The others just haven't been found yet. But that information boosted my confidence. I know a lot of people would look at this and think, wow, if you're the only one with this genetic mutation, that has to be incredibly frightening. Well, survival rates with my type of tumor diminished significantly after 5 years. I knew that going in, but they've never seen a mutation like mine. I looked at it like I have a superpower. They have no idea what I'm capable of doing. But we did learn that my tumor was not genetically linked to my father, and that I have markers that one traditional treatment would not work for me, but another one in clinical trials right now, I do qualify for. Again, knowledge is power. Now, don't think it's lost on me how fortunate I am that I live in Northeast Ohio and have access to some of the greatest medical minds and advances. So even though I thought I was done with surgery, Dr. Racines came up with a new plan.
Monica Robbins, sorry, is on the air every day with us, and she brings us all this health news that we can use. I don't even know why I'm crying, because you made me. But tonight, she becomes the center of the story once again.
Yeah, once again, Monica is now facing what she's calling round 3, I heard you at 4 o'clock, of her ongoing health battle. Our friend, our dear friend, and our close co-worker is preparing to head back for her 3rd brain surgery, only this one is a bit revolutionary. And We're positive here.
I'm supposed to be supporting her, and she's supporting me.
Listen, I've been talking to her about this for over a month, and
this is our relationship.
Your attitude is incredible.
I'm so gonna make fun of you later. I can't wait. I can't wait.
So will I.
Yeah, I know.
We'll share a good laugh.
She has been so good lately, and then you know, right when I climb up my ladder to get on this giant Everest high chair, she starts crying. Okay, ironically, folks, this one has nothing to do with my residual brain tumor, actually, you know, that just left the damage behind, what it left behind, actually. So my last 2 surgeries had to remove significant amounts of bone and tumor. Now, there's nothing holding my brain back. So it's essentially pushing my eye out of my head. But now I will be the second post-operative patient to have a new type of implant designed just for my head. And the best way to show you how it works is to let you see inside my head. So I just want to warn you, I'm about to show you computer images of my skull.
This is what my right eye socket looks like. This is what my brain tumor did to my left.
You can see the difference in the area that we worked on in the past compared to the normal side. This is what the orbital roof and the lateral orbital wall would look like. And we've removed a lot of that.
Residual brain tumor is still sitting on the back of my left eye and in what's left of my eye socket. My last surgery removed tumor-infiltrated bone around the socket, leaving open space, but that's allowing my brain to push my eye forward, causing pressure, pain, and other issues. The solution? Rebuild it.
So by reconstructing it, we'll be able to reestablish a fixed and hard barrier so that your brain is no longer pushing on it, and hopefully your eye can come back.
Before now, there wasn't an option because there was nowhere to mount an implant. Now, thanks to 3D printing and a space-age polymer, Dr. Racinos can make a 3D image of my skull and create an implant bone replacement from those dimensions, and essentially make a puzzle piece that will fit inside my head.
We're able to have the orbital roof, the orbital sidewall, and the area of the craniotomy that's been removed all in one piece.
So how does it stay in there? Will you glue it?
No, we won't. So because we will remove some of this bone and the implant will take its place, we will fix it probably with some titanium implants that look like this.
If I don't do this, what am I risking?
We've been patient and conservative with you, and your symptoms, if anything, have gotten worse. I don't think that they're going to get better, unfortunately.
Is this buying me more time?
Yes, it is buying you more time. Remember what we talked about in terms of the goals. I do not plan on going inside the eye in a very aggressive way. So if there's tumor cells that are still located in the eye itself or in the covering of the eye, we're not going to address those. But yes, it does buy additional time.
So again, this is just to improve my quality of life. It has nothing to do with brain tumor. Cleveland Clinic placed these implants in 14 patients who had original surgeries like mine the first time. I'll be the second patient they bring back who's gone through 2 surgeries prior to see if the implant will work. This is a full craniotomy, so I'll likely be in the hospital for several days with a long scar and a few staples again, just like the first time, but hopefully this works and brings some much needed relief to a situation that had none.
Well, as usual, you fascinate us with the way that you spin the story and you make it just so easy. You've been through a craniotomy before, and you talk about, you know, I'll have a long scar and all this stuff. What's it actually like?
Miserable. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm getting ready. I'm probably going to lose my hair again. You know, that's what everybody doesn't realize. They don't have to shave my head. I think that's a misconception. They just shave where they cut. So I'll have a shaved spot from here to about here. So it's about good 10 inches. I had 51 staples last time. We'll see how many I have this time.
Wow.
But yeah, but the trauma to the head actually causes your hair to fall out about 3 weeks later. Yeah.
So it's not shaved. It's just.
So it's not shaved, but the stress to your head, the trauma from the surgery actually causes it to fall out.
Betsy, I joked. I said, "You're going to be our bionic woman," and she said, "It's funny you said that. When I was growing up, my favorite show, and my hero was it Jamie Summers?
Jamie Summers. I keep hearing the voice in my head. We can rebuild her. And my joke is they're going to make me a cyborg, except I'm first generation and I don't get the version with the laser eye, and I'm really upset about that. So maybe I'll get an upgrade next time and I'll get the laser eye, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I'm excited about this. I will tell you, you know, it's because it's so new.
Yeah.
And I haven't, you know me, I like to do a lot of homework, and there's not a lot of information out there. And this is kind of controversial.
Wow.
So, but, you know, I'm taking the steps where, you know, people are going to learn from this, and hopefully this is going to change the way people do things.
And it's not the tumor.
It isn't. It's not
literally just a structural build.
Correct. Yeah. So the tumor is still going to be there. I'm still going to have to deal with the brain tumor.
But
the tumor is not going to go anywhere.
Right.
You know, we're still going to have to deal with that nonsense. But hopefully, this will bring the relief to the ridiculous amount of pain and other nonsense I have to deal with on a daily basis.
We love you.
Love you too.
Be good.
And you've got an army of folks behind you.
Do what you're told.
Maybe.
Yeah. And come back when they tell you it's okay to come back, and not a day before.
I made a promise I would not escape from the hospital early.
Well, go wash your hands now that you've been touching me.
Yes,
I don't want to get
exactly.
you all infected with whatever.
We're
so
with you, Mom.
Wash your hands.
Best of luck.
Thanks, Mom.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you today. I appreciate your time.